Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 481. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Our next guest believes that academic performance can benefit from athletes. This exciting new model blends quality, structured education with elite indoor soccer training. Welcome, Soccer IQ partner and Director of Operations and Education, Bridgette Robinson.
Good morning. Hello, everyone.
I've given our audience such a brief bio, Bridgette. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
I'll start with I am an educator at heart, and then I ended up becoming an entrepreneur because of my driven personality. I worked as an educator for about 5 years, and then I decided I'm going to start my own school. I'm going to start it and I'm going to do it out of my home. And that's what led me into being a businesswoman, as I had to learn how to grow my business, scale it, manage employees. Over the course of this last decade, I have learned to be very good at becoming a successful businesswoman here in Southern California, working and blending education and sports. And I work on other business models now as well.
Why soccer?
Oh, my son is a brilliant athlete, and soccer is his sport of choice. He follows in his dad's footsteps. His dad is a local legend here in the LA area for soccer. And I fell in love with the sport because watching it, it's like a story that unfolds when it's done well. It's very intelligent. You can see the skill, you can see the talent. It's an intellectual sport with a lot of strategy, kind of like, it's like chess, good game of chess. So I really love that.
What is something that we as consumers, as parents, that we don't know about education that we should know?
Oh, yeah, this is a great question. I think that we take public education, we give it too much power. And parents should know that education for your child is customizable. There are many different options for children and how they can experience learning. And if you look at your child's strengths and weaknesses, you can determine what type of model would be best for your child. The public model is great, and I'm very proud of public education. It's necessary for communities, especially low income. That's very important. It's foundational. However, I'll speak specifically about my son. He had a very hard time sitting in a classroom for 6 hours a day in a seat, taking tests, paper and pencil. It just wasn't the model that worked for him. And I don't know who it really does work for, but specifically not my son. There are many different options out there for parents to try. There is micro schools where it's a smaller group. It's more intimate setting. There's multiple age groups in the same space. And that's really good for kids because there's older kids in the room and they have older role models. And so they're setting behavioral expectations. There's project-based model about critical thinking and group work. There's many different models that parents can choose from. They really should do research, visit different schools, and don't feel locked in because the school district says you have to go to that school. Look at your different options, expand your horizons, and test things out for your kid.
Bridgette, talk about your education model, what you guys are doing around the soccer.
Yes, we follow a model that's been in Europe forever, and it's not foreign to the landscape of education at all. Basically, what it does is it condenses the amount of time that the student athletes are doing their educational work, and then it also focuses on the sport, soccer. Our kids will do 4 hours of education, they take a lunch break, and then they work on soccer. By condensing the time frame in which the kids are learning, it allows them to have more time for the enrichment activity. So it's a great blend of bringing two things together, the education and the sport, which for us is soccer. But this model can be used for anything. I mean, if you have a great pianist at home, you could have the 4 hours of education and then you could do the piano training. It's a pretty basic concept, but I guess it's very revolutionary. It's working well for soccer athletes.
And was it easy for your area, you're in California, to adopt the model, your education model, or talk about the back end story to go through the process to get approval for this?
It's not easy. It's interesting. You have to step outside the boundary. You have to be willing to take a big risk here because the school district is king in Southern California. I think in California, in the nation, right? So once you step outside that public sector, you're starting to step into uncharted territory unless you're an established private school, a religious school, things like that. So when I had the idea and I approached public schools to be a branch off of them, to rent even a classroom on their campus somewhere, they said no. Bunch of red tape. They weren't going for it. And I said to them, you know that if you have this soccer program on your campus using your fields, you're going to bring kids from outside of the district into your district. You're going to retain more kids. You're going to increase your head count. They were interested. I was very surprised. A lot of it had to do with liability. So what I had to do is I had to partner with a local soccer center, Deaf Touch Soccer Center, which is in Los Alamitos. It's very well known in the area. I had to partner with the soccer center. And then I rented like a bungalow that you would see outside of school. I rented a bungalow, put it on the side of the soccer center, created a classroom. And then I had to partner with a virtual academy to then be able to have the education piece of the business. And I shopped around. I went to so many different schools and I asked about their virtual programming. The problem was that a lot of it was independent studies. And I just didn't feel that that was a good fit for my middle school model. So I ended up finding a good virtual academy and I partnered with them. And it was very difficult, very challenging. The first partnership, even our educational partners, was with a school district and they sold us on the program and they were like, yeah, we're going to expand into high school. You could use our virtual model, our teachers, just enroll the kids. So that was great. And then they closed the program out of the blue. Just January was like, oh, we're closing the program. And like all these parents I had recruited, it was a mess. We partnered now with a private academy and it's project-based and it's CTL Academy. And they do project-based learning. I'm not sure how many of your listeners know about project-based learning, but we feel that it is a great fit for the team dynamic that we have at Soccer IQ with obviously our soccer players who play on soccer teams. To answer your question, it was a struggle. It was about 6 months to a year of struggle trying to get it off the ground.
When we talk about for our audience and anyone listening to explore, educate themselves about different models, why don't you talk about the CTL model, specifically the project-based model? Give our audience a little bit more information about that.
Yeah, this is a very exciting model, and it's all based on the kids themselves creating, constructing, and building solutions to problems that they're presented with. This may be that the students are working together collaboratively to find a solution to a problem. And so that's kind of the project-based model. They use skills that they've learned from class, obviously, to construct something, to then provide a solution to fix the issue, right? This is a really great model because it mimics real-life situations. Right? So it's not isolated from something random in a classroom on a piece of paper and we tested and you bubbled in the answer. It's a very different experience than that. However, there needs to be some structures in place in order for the kids to be successful. And it's not something that kids who have coming from public school who have not done project-based model can just jump in and be able to do. They have to critically think for themselves. They have to know how to collaborate and communicate with peers. They have to know how to problem solve. They have to know how to go through multiple steps to find a solution to a problem. So it's higher level thinking, and it's the application of the learning that makes this model a very beneficial model to students of all ages.
So you talked about the challenge you had with the one school shutting down in January. Are you up and running? Where are you at in the process now?
Yes, so we're up and running. They closed the program to end by this year. In the meantime, Dr. Mara Simmons, who is somebody I worked with when I was at LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District, I kept in touch with her and she had started her own virtual academy. We got together 10 years later and she has this virtual academy and I have this soccer school and it was a perfect match. So next year, our students will be journeying into the CTL Academy model, which is the private school. And I really love it because it's a lot more customizable for our kiddos, right? So I contact her and her team and her teachers and I can have real life conversations conversations with people. We can customize it depending on our kids' needs. And as you know, like with soccer athletes, like your son, they're very energetic, right? And they need to get out there, need to get running. And by knowing our students, we can better provide them with the education they need. And some of our kids have IEPs because they've been trapped in these classrooms, sitting in a seat, and we're trying to give them all the information. So they have individual education plans, which is an IEP, so that they get preferential seating, so they get longer test time. We welcome those students because we are more smaller scale. We're a small classroom. It's more intimate. They have personalized one-on-one contact with the teacher. We're able to individualize their educational experience. So it's very beneficial to soccer athletes.
That is amazing, Bridgette. And I want you to talk to that parent whose child is very active. And it's interesting that, and the audience is like, some may or may not know, because I don't really do a lot of personal stories on the podcast because it's about my guests. But as Bridgette had mentioned, my son was a soccer player, and he actually ended up with a full ride scholarship for soccer when he was young. So I had him in private school since he was 6 weeks old. And I remember a teacher saying, because he was so active and so energetic, that they needed to put him on some type of drugs. Mm-hmm. And I said, absolutely not. And what I ended up doing is I took him off all sugar foods. So for breakfast, I would do oatmeal with bananas. It was all natural. And that's something when you talk about fueling, athletes fueling, and that, especially if they want to go on to the collegiate level. So I want you to talk to that parent that has that energetic child.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
Yeah, this is the part of the story that touches my heart, because I'll tell you a little bit about my son's experience, and parents, I'm sure, can resonate with this. My son was being asked to be retained, and to be retained means held back a grade level almost every single year. And it seemed so interesting to me that his other friends were getting the same response from the school, and they're all Black kids. And we're in 2024. I was very observant about what was happening. And he does just like your son. He moves a lot. He fidgets. He has to constantly be moving. He can't focus. There's all this stimulus around him, right? And so by the time we got to 5th grade, I was like, this is not going to work anymore. And I was a former 6th grade teacher. So I knew what he should have mastered by 6th grade. So 5th grade, I was like, I'm going to start this school for you. We have to do this, because if you don't, you're going to be behind. This retention idea that they have in their heads, the school, they put it on him. He was trapped. It was a trap. The school setting was not good for him. So I had to create something different, had to create an alternative environment that would allow him to be successful. And by allowing him to be successful, other kids like him will be successful too. And so that meant a smaller classroom size, something so simple, so basic, a small classroom setting, right? Opportunity to move out of your seat multiple times during class time, different style of teaching, a real relationship with a teacher. So the smaller classroom we have, the more a kid can contact their teacher, the more they could talk to their teacher. That establishes a relationship. Now the child is willing to work for you because they know you. The teacher treats them well. They have a relationship. There's trust. Then there's the component of soccer. If your child loves soccer, what are they going to do to go play soccer? They're going to finish their work. No more of this like, oh, I'm just going to scribble it all, get it all done. No, now he has time to complete assignments before he goes to do the thing that he loves. And the thing that he loves is tied to his education. And in this model, the new project-based model, they're intertwining soccer issues and problems into the schoolwork. So there's a relationship with what he's learning to the sport that he loves. It's magical. And this can be for all kids. And for the parents out there that feel that angst, like this angst inside, like, you send your kid to school, but you just feel like they're suffering. I felt like he was suffering. And that's so sad to say. I want you to explore options and not be afraid to step outside of the box and look out there for what is best for your kid. There are so many options. You just have to research it. Your child can be successful, and it takes you looking and finding solutions to that problem for your child. And I want to specify, this is not just boys, this is girls too, right? There's a lot of girls that don't just sit at the table and write and read. We need to also think about our science-minded kiddos, our girls, where they're in the classroom and they want to do hands-on things. They want to put the experiment here. They want to do this. They want to move things around. We have to pay attention to our girls too, because sometimes they get left behind. They don't get the same treatment.
And how is your son doing now, academically, emotionally, physically?
I am so proud that this year he got his first A ever. Yes. And he got an award in math. He's writing essays. He's writing paragraphs on his own, the 6th grade standards. And thanks to his teacher, she was absolutely amazing this year. He had a real relationship with her. He loves her. He says that his teacher this year is the best teacher that he's ever had in his whole life. And I mean, that's a virtual teacher. That's not even an in-classroom teacher. So what does that say about virtual learning? So that's a whole other conversation. But he has excelled this year in his academics. I'm excited to get his report card. I wish I had it today so I could report to you. But in his soccer, he went from a flight 1. So that's like, we'll say for parents, there's different flights for soccer. And my son was at flight 1 level. And then he went all the way up to the ECNL level, which is the Elite Club National League. So that's the highest level he can go for his age group right now. So just by being in soccer, and you know that he practices 2 hours more a day than the average kid because he has the time. He moved up a whole level and is now a starter on the team. For people, that means that he starts every game and he does the entire time. He plays the entire time, doesn't come off that field. Not only has he excelled academically, but athletically in soccer, he has excelled too. So the model that I created actually works. He was the guinea pig, but it worked.
Awesome. Bridgette, thanks for sharing. And kudos to you as an advocate, as a mom, as an entrepreneur, and this brilliant business model and celebrating your son. And say his name, his first name.
Joaquin.
So shout out to Joaquin. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
There are so many brands and businesses that are dominating. Talk about a brand or a business that's dominating that you admire and why.
I really love the fact that we have a lot of different options for kids with their fashion styles. My son tends to love Dr. Dre and Eminem, so that's his style and that's his fashion. But then his other friend next to him really likes the skateboard vibe, right? So these brands and trends, like we all used to have to look a certain way to pretend to be like a group, a collective of people, right? But now the versatility in the way that kids dress, I love it. And why that is so important is because it was interesting. We went to Knott's Berry Farm yesterday and had a group of Black boys with me, obviously. And they were going to take a picture with Snoopy. And the lady said to me, okay, you guys can take a picture with Snoopy, but no gang signs. And I looked at her and I was like, oh, yeah, don't worry. We won't show our gang signs today. And she goes, you'd be surprised. And it's kind of like, oh, that's hard to lead with, right? So back in the day, fashion used to show that off a little bit more like, oh, yeah, I'm a gangster, I'm this, I'm that. But now kids today can be versatile with the way they dress. They don't have to be labeled. They don't have to. And that's very important, not only in a school setting, but just out in the universe. I love that the brands today allow kids to really represent who they are instead of trying to get them to fit into a box and a label.
Yeah, that's interesting that she would even say that. That is, very poor taste. Who is your ideal client for the soccer school?
Ideal client are parents that are interested in elevating their children's soccer skills. Also, parents who are having a hard time with their students' educational experience. I specialize in that. That's my specialty, is taking the kids that have a hard time in a traditional setting and giving them a space where they can actually excel. If a parent is having a hard time, and a lot of the parents that I've talked to so far that have enrolled their kids in our school, their thing is, my kid is struggling in school. Yeah. So I'm looking for that parent. I'm also looking for the parent whose kid is invested, dedicated 100% to their soccer career. So my son wants to be a professional soccer player. And I mean, what kid doesn't want to be a professional soccer player? But what kid is willing to invest 2 hours a day of soccer practice more than the average kid? Who is that kid? Who are those parents? Those parents are the ones that are really dedicated to getting their kid a scholarship, just like your son, getting them to the next level, getting them to the collegiate level and higher education too, right? So I'm looking for those parents. Those are my kids and those are my parents.
And Bridgette, if someone is interested in learning more and connecting with you, how would they connect with you?
Yes, so we have our website, socceriqinstitute.com. You can email me too at info@socceriqinstitute@gmail, info@socceriqinstitute.com. And then we have ads on YouTube. If you just click the ad, I'm there too. I'm all over the place down here. I'm at every tournament. You see me, I'm out there. So you can stop me, you can say hi.
Thank you for that. Talk about naming Soccer IQ. How did you come up with that name?
Oh, it's a perfect blend in what we do, right? It's the intelligence, the academics, the IQ mixed with soccer. It's really simple. The model is so simple. And people are like, whoa, nobody really is doing that. Well, I've never heard of that. I don't know if I'm really willing to take that risk. It's very simple. It's education and soccer. It's IQ and soccer. And you have to have this soccer IQ to play well in soccer. And so it's a perfect blend of what we do at Soccer IQ. We are educating these kids and helping them get to the next level, not only in soccer, but in academics as well.
It's brilliant. Bridgette, I want you to have a monologue and I want you to name this person, living or not, and they've inspired you so much. Who is the person and what are you saying to that person?
First, my grandmother, who was a trailblazer in the science industry, a woman who became the first manager at Lawrence Livermore Lab, specific department. I forget what the atom or molecule was, plutonium, I think it was. And she's just such a respectable woman and somebody who inspires me and who has inspired me my entire life because she never let any obstacle get in the way of what she wanted to achieve. Never. She couldn't work in the science sector even after getting her master's degree from Berkeley in chemistry. She couldn't work because women weren't allowed to work yet. And then she was given the opportunity and she worked in the lab. She was given the opportunity to then be a manager despite the things that people said about her. And then she fought for equal pay for women scientists and actually won a lawsuit against UC Regents, which closed the pay gap between women and men. And she fought for what she believed in and she never stopped. And I admire that so much. And she is my grandma, somebody that I physically grew up with. And so she is my heart and soul. Very, very proud to be her granddaughter.
Please say her name.
Oh, yeah. Mary Singleton. And then my father is the second inspiration. Despite his shortcomings, my father, Patrick Robinson, grew up in Mississippi in the South, and he was in the first integrated class of his area, which was Reform, Mississippi. And he told me that when the kids were brought to the school, that the Black children were put into special ed automatically. They were brought through the front door of the classroom. And then when the Black kids entered the front door, there was another door on the inside. And then they were all pushed into the special ed classroom. He had to test out of special ed to go to a general education class. That to me is astonishing. And this is my father's experience, right? Not too far separated from this generation of kids, okay? And he was doing well in school, but was never given any awards, never acknowledged. He was at the top of his class, wasn't acknowledged, left school, went to the military, was able to come to California. And he is an entrepreneur, natural in spirit, and worked in the realty home industry. He worked in the real estate industry. He was a lender for years, and he bought like 12 houses and now has a property management company. And he just started a new business, him and his wife, which is my stepmom, Angelina Robinson. She's amazing as well. They have a business where they have a hall now out of a farm. They created out of the farmhouse a hall for people to have weddings and venues. So now he started a new business. And he's like 60. So he's a natural entrepreneur at heart. And he's inspiring his story because he had to deal with real adversity. We talk about these kids today. Well, my dad had to deal with a lot of adversity to get to where he is. So he's very inspiring.
Thank you for that. What are you most proud of, Bridgette, right now?
I'm proud of my kids. That's what I'm proud of. I'm proud of my son this year. I can't believe it worked. And that he was able to feel what it feels like to be a good student. That's so sad to say, but he had to wait until he was in 6th grade to feel like he was a good student. I'm so proud of that for him. That makes me feel like I did a good job. And my daughter, who is a beautiful ballerina and a dancer, and she's got this great personality. And so me as a mother, being able to balance my family and be able to still say that I'm an entrepreneur is a great accomplishment, right? How many of us get an opportunity to balance the two successfully without dropping the ball in either area? So I'm very proud of that for myself.
Talk about motherhood and managing a business.
Oh man, that's a struggle. That's a struggle. But I can say that all the businesses that I have created have been centered around my kids. So I have been able to do it successfully. I started a childcare. I had small children, right? And now I have a soccer school that's focused on my son. My daughter is in dance. I was able to balance them because they were, together. I was able to do them both together. And that's how I've always focused my energy, is doing things that I can still keep my family together and still keep my business whole. But it is a challenge. And for women, this is what you need to know. You need to cut up your day and you need to plan ahead. People living day to day, you need to get a Google Calendar and you need to plan things out months in advance. You have to do it as a mother. You're not going to just be able to wing it day by day. What I mean by that is you have to cut these times where you work and you need to make time for your family. You have to do it. For me, my rule is after 5 o'clock, I put this laptop down and I'm focused on my family. Whatever I need to get to, I do it after they go to sleep. So I'll put them to bed at about 8:30. Now they're older, so it's like 9:30. But you have a window of time in which you work. You have a window of time in which you're a mom, and then you can go back to doing work once they're in bed because they need your attention. And I say that because I'm an educator. You need to sit down and do the homework with them. You need to sit down and read with them. They should not be on the computers playing games. You have to be with them one-on-one. That balance is necessary, but you could do it by using a calendar and by cutting up your day and planning ahead. That's what you got to do.
It's summer is coming. We're here in summer in some states. I know I'm in Nevada and summer has started for our school system. What do you do with your children during the summer?
My daughter does dance camp all summer. We do one family trip. So this year we're going to go to Rosarito, but my kids stay in camp. They don't stay home. And if I can't afford camp, I'll make one. If I can't afford a camp, I'll create one. I'll go to the local park. I'll get a permit and my husband will run like the soccer part of it. And I'll rent like the clubhouse and do a bridge program or like some academic. Create it. My kids are not going to stay home. They have to be doing something enriching during the summer. And I recommend that for parents too. They need to be outdoors. They need to be running. They need to go to the zoo. There's lots of free stuff available. Taking walks in the parks with kids, playing with them, engaging with them. And parents that work in the summer, that's hard. But if you look in your local cities, they do have recreation programs that are usually relatively cheap. And if you're on subsidized income, like if you have a child that gets their childcare subsidized by the government, a lot of these rec programs accept those payments, and your kid can maybe shift from the childcare to doing something outside of the childcare that's more fun. Or if you have a school age child, they will accept the school age funding into the recreation centers to do different activities. My kids do tennis, they do soccer, obviously, and dance. One year they did surfing, but surfing was like very expensive, but they loved it and they were exhausted, and I loved that. So it's kind of worth the money.
And it was enriching.
That's
right. I love it. Talk about mental wellness and managing a business.
That's a great conversation. And that's not something that I prioritized when I started my business. So for you women entrepreneurs, I understand what you're going through right now. When you start a business from the ground up, from scratch, you work night and day to get it off the ground. But if by the third year you are still doing everything, you're not doing something right. You have to learn to scale and put people in the right places to do things for you. You cannot continue to do everything yourself. You will burn out, you will get sick, and I did. You will ruin relationships in your home with your loved ones. You're sacrificing yourself at the end of the day. So you have to learn to scale your business by the third year. I think that's kind of my time frame, my gauge. Since I've sold my first business this year, I've had an opportunity to practice self-care, to understand what that is like. Oftentimes, in education, they tell us, you got to take these moments of self-care. You have to do, but when you are a workhorse, you don't understand what that means. But let me help people understand what they can do. What I do for myself is I take one day out of the week where I give my responsibilities to everybody else in the world, my husband, my mom, everybody. And I stay home and I do a therapy. I do a virtual therapy right here from this computer in my home. I will go get my nails done. I will go get my hair done. Not all in the same day. The therapy is every day, but I will go exercise at a place I don't usually go exercise. I will meet a friend for lunch. I will lay out in the backyard. I will play with my rabbit. I will watch Bridgerton. I will do whatever because it's my day. It's for me, right? I still have to go pick up my kids from school. That's fine. I mean, if you have to do that, that's great. But you need to take a day. I won't even tell you a day. day. You need to give yourself 3 hours to shut off and do you. That's it. You have to do it. You have to make time for yourself. And if your excuse is like, not excuse, but if you have real reason, I have to do this for my kids, I have to do this for my husband or my wife or whatever it is, you can tell people that you are going to be silent for at least 3 hours. Take a nap, rest. My mom says you don't rest unless your eyes are closed. So close your eyes. I have a vision board on my wall next to my bed, and I will sometimes sit there and I will look at my vision board. And in my vision board, there's a whole section on mental health that I'm going to focus on myself this year. And I have done that so well. So for people out there who are working hard to get their businesses off the ground, try to find some employees that you trust that could take over for a day so that you can get the rest that you need. Because if you don't, you're not going to be your best self or your best business.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Bridgette, what is your zone of genius?
I'm the foundation and the structure, the frame of the house. That's my genius. My genius is you put me in any business, and now I'm consulting. You put me in any business, I can create a structure for you. I can create systems of operations that make it run smoothly. I can look at anything and create a structure for it. Foundation, structure. And the reason why I can do that is because I've started multiple businesses from the ground up. So I kind of know what is necessary in order to give a business that firm foundation so that then they can scale it after that. The business owner can.
Talk about your worst moment in business and what was your takeaway?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I remember when spring is always really hard time in childcare. So I'm referring to my childcare business at this point. I lose a lot of staff during spring. Opportunities arrive, summer's coming, new year. People are trying to find new jobs. And I had one of my key employees leave and abruptly. And I didn't have a plan for who was going to replace that person, obviously, because it was abruptly. And at that point, I was working in the morning and at night, and I was already overwhelmed. I was already stressed. And then she left and I had a nervous breakdown. And I had a rash that came in. And at that point, I knew, okay, I need to start to scale my business. And in that way, I hired an HR person. I hired an accountant. I hired experts to start doing the jobs that I was doing by myself. And I gave them those responsibilities. So what I have learned from this situation is that, yes, it may cost more, but you need to give people jobs that they do the best. And you need to focus on what you do the best. There's no reason for you to be doing everything by yourself. I understand financial struggles. If you are a leader, people will follow you. They will do the work for you until you can pay them. They will do it because if you are a leader, they will follow you. So you find your community, you find your group, and you allow them to help you grow your business. And the people who stand by you, stand by you. That was a very hard time for me in my business. I learned from it.
How did you raise the capital? Speaking of money, how did you capital to start your businesses?
That's a great question. My mom gave me a loan to purchase a business that was running in a center. So I did not get the physical property. I went from my home business, expanded that, had a wait list here in my home, and then looked around for a year, found a center. There was a running business in it, and I bought that business inside the center. And then I moved all my families into that center. So the first part was my mom gave me a loan. And then the person who I purchased the business from carried the note. So I paid her monthly for 5 years, right? And then I paid my mom back too. I was at 14 when I was here at my house. And when I got to the center over the course of a year, I expanded to 42 kids. And the pandemic hit. And I was only 1 year into that center. But the pandemic was my best year. I got every PPP loan. I got every EIDL loan. I got 2 EIDL loans. So those are the ones you pay back. But PPP, I got them forgiven. So the capital I got for my business, I got it from the pandemic funding, a lot of it. And then because all of the schools closed in the area, I got all their kids and I had filed for a waiver to stay open. While others closed, I went to the state and I asked to stay open and they gave me the waiver. So I collected all these kids from all over the area. So the pandemic was my best year. And with that PPP loan, I not only paid staff, but I opened up a whole other center and doubled my capacity. So I invested more into my business with that. And that's what made my program boom.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Bridgette, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
Bridgette, I would ask myself, Bridgette, why don't you think about things more before you jump into them? I get these brilliant ideas. I get so obsessed about them. I'm like, this is going to work. This is going to work. And then I jump in without thinking. And then I figure it out as I go along, right? What I would tell myself is, yes, Bridgette, you have a great idea. Yes, it's going to work. It's going to be phenomenal. But let's create that business plan and let's go to SCORE. or let's go to the SBA and let's have them look at that business plan and ask you more questions so that your idea is fully thought out so that things can go a little more smoothly. I'm just a risk taker.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If it's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Rapid Round of Fun?
I hope I do a good job.
What is your favorite comfort food?
Oh, chocolate chip cookies.
The last movie you saw?
Atlas with Jennifer Lopez. She did a great job.
You relax doing what?
Drinking coffee.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Eminem.
Your favorite dance song?
Oh, Justin Timberlake. Any troll song from Justin Timberlake.
What food do you eat every week, no matter what?
Chocolate chip cookies.
Work out or hit the couch?
Hit the couch.
Bridgette Robinson, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and to do business with you. Feel free to leave all your social media handles.
All right. You can find us at socceriqinstitute.com, Soccer IQ Institute at Instagram and Facebook. And you can email me info@socceriqinstitute.com as well.
Thank you, Bridgette. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.